I'm delighted to have Neil to the series today. I've been trying to get in contact with Neil now for quite some time, as is he with me. So it's absolutely a pleasure to get down to sit with him, especially with everything that you have ongoing currently. And you know, I've worked with Neil as a candidate, as a client, and it'd be great to understand his journey and obviously bring it to yourselves then going forward. So thanks for joining us, Neil. Really great to have you, as I said.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure.
Brilliant, excellent. So yeah, so what we're going to just run through is your early days in your career, understand a little bit about yourself, and then we'll run through to your leadership qualities and what you've done around the leadership piece. And then obviously we'll talk about the present day, and then any hints and tips that you'll give to people from grad level all the way up to senior leadership level. So always the first question, and what always interests myself in particular is, you know, getting into IT. What sparked your interest? I won't say all of those years ago. We don't want to give your age away, but a few years back, what sparked your interest getting into IT?
A few different things, really. We were quite lucky in primary school. I went to Sacred Heart in Finglas, and we had a few old IBM machines there, and playing different games on that. And that was probably my first exposure to computers. And then we ended up with a Commodore 64 for Christmas one year when I was probably 7 or 8. And that came with a big, massive book of basic commands, or kind of like algorithms. And that was probably like my first exposure to, like, you have to make Pong in BASIC on the Commodore 64, which is pretty cool. And then in secondary, then it was kind of like I kind of got involved in this thing called the Satanta project, which was like building out a platform for teaching classes over the internet. So like with a PC in the room, it's like 98, 99, PC in the room with DCU. We built this kind of like web server that hosted all the courseware, all the content for teaching. So teachers could teach without books or like overhead projectors. I think everyone hates them overhead projectors. So they were able to cast with a like a projector and like show the courseware. So we built, was like 6 students across all the years. I was in first or second year then, but I had some interest in it, so I tried to get involved and got
involved. And how long ago was that? Because obviously that would have been quite...
Yeah, it was very early. It was like 98. So I started in 98. So it was 98, 99, I'd say. I was first and second year. First, maybe second year I was in, when that happened. And that really, because like they put us on like a front page 2000 course, which was what people used to use like back in the 90s to build websites. So they gave us HTML training, CSS training, and they brought someone in from DCU, I think it was. And it was pretty interesting. And for the age of me, it was only what, 12 or 13. So that kind of sparked me interest in it. And we just stayed involved. A couple of us in school, then we built a few different bits and bobs over the years. None of it ever worked, but we tried. But that's probably where the interest kind of came from.
Brilliant. So are you still into the gaming side of things, or
I play games? I play different games. I would have loved like the likes of Age of Empires and Quake and over the years when I was younger, but now mostly PUBG. Just quick, get in and get out, 20 minutes, you know. Get that.
That's class. Brilliant. No, it's good to spark your interest, like, and that's what I think a lot of people. You know, I still remember when we got the first PlayStation. You did the PS1, and you could play FIFA, indoor football, and FIFA. That you could have, like, so I still have those memories. I think I asked for a Nintendo, and Santi was good to us. Good to us that year, Santi was. So it was happy days. But then leading on, because obviously you're speaking about, you know, your background, and especially, you know, I'm from up a stone's throw away from you, up in Coolock there. So you know, we would be seen as let's say underprivileged locations, and you wouldn't normally see maybe the top tech talent coming from you know, Finglas, a Coolock maybe potentially. So what was your path then into? Did you head into then obviously college thereafter, or how did you progress then into you know, let's say education around computers or IT in particular?
Like that really gave me again pure luck on that Satanta project thing that happened in Aiden's. but in secondary. But then in third, it was third or fifth year. I actually can't. Or was it might have been second? The end in the summer of second year, I came across like Dorset College, Dorset Street. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
But they used to run like courses in IT and different things, and I was like, said to me, man, I want to. Can I do that? It's 2 months. It's during the summer. Can I just do it? It's 3 days a week. So she said, yeah. It was a few £100. I can't remember how much it was, but it was expensive at the time. But she let me do it, and that really gave me. So I learned. It was kind of like an ECDL. If you remember the ECDL.
Yeah, it was like the computer driver's license.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. It might have been that, or it might have been something. So from there, just kind of built on that and started getting really. And then that the course lecture in that. I was like 13, and everyone else was in their 40s and 50s in the course. It was kind of weird. It was kind of a weird thing, but but from there anyway, they gave me a HTML book when I was leaving. They gave it to me and said, he likes this, you need to keep him. And so it's HTML goodies. I still have it here somewhere. It's called HTML goodies. But anyway, from then she would be against me saying, what do you want to do this? So she brought me out to Maynooth one year, and in fifth year, over the summer, saying this is like one of the places where you can do it, and I loved it. I'd never been to Maynooth, and so I ended up going to Maynooth then in 2000 and whatever, 2 or 3.
You haven't come back, have you?
Sorry,
you're still out that way. You haven't come back.
I'm way further out now. Yeah.
You love the countryside now. Brilliant, super. And so going through college, like how did you find it? Because obviously, it wasn't, let's say, the early days, but it's early enough in let's say scalable computing, and especially in the Irish market, probably in the US it was more, had taken off in the States and places like that, but it would have been in its infancy, in Ireland. So how did you find, going through college? How did you find it?
Yeah, Maynooth, it was computer science and software engineering. It wasn't very popular back then, as you just after the 2000 crash or whatever. So I didn't even get the points to do it. I got under it, but I guess no one else applied, so they let me in. I think it was 5 or 10 points short on me leaving. But anyway, brilliant course. It was actually really good for looking back now. It was really, really good. There was some really interesting. At the time, some of it was like so abstract that it was. But now looking back, you're like, okay, that that's why I learned that now. It's a fantastic course in Maynooth. I'd recommend it to anyone. There's a great computer science department there. I just highly recommend.
And is it different, like when you were on the course, was it the case that you were getting exposure to like different languages, because you spoke about you spoke about HTML and you spoke about, obviously they're more so used on the front end side of things, which I know your career evolved into architecture and back end, front end, all areas. So what was it exactly that sparked your interest as you're going?
I remember first, I really struggled. I was very young going in as well. I just gone 17 going into first year, so a lot of this was so abstract. Particularly like day one was Java, not JavaScript. It was Java, so I was like, it kind of looks familiar, but it really like building like palindrome identifier algorithms in first year was like, what's going on? So like the first years were really difficult, but so I did struggle for the first year or two until like there is a moment I think everyone goes through where it clicks, and it might be in first year, it might be 2 years into your postgraduate, but there is a point where it just starts making sense. And it was probably second year for me before I really understood what I was even doing, even though I had that background, even though I had way more going into first year than everyone else, I still found it hard. Like,
would you put that down to kind of not like maturity, maybe mightn't be the right word, but your age? So if you were looking back now, and I know a lot of people are kind of keeping their kids out now, starting school maybe when they're 5, making sure they do the likes of transition year, maybe go to college when they're 18 and 19. So if you were looking back, is that something that you would probably have liked to do, maybe started school a little bit later? Or took a gap year out and maybe went in at 18, 19, you probably would have it might have landed a little bit better than with that extra bit of time that you would have had.
Yeah, definitely. And like that was the same in secondary. Even like some of the things were very difficult. To, and honors maths was extremely difficult because I was so young. But yeah, and that's why I always say to like mature students going to do computer science degrees, you should do it because you're going in with a level of understanding, just like a maturity that you don't have when you're 17 or 18, and waiting that year or two extra is great. But like that's what and people like you hear people kind of like are worried to go back as a mature student in their 30s or 40s or
Yeah.
50s to go into IT or go into software development. Like you should don't
Yeah,
let that be a
if you
barrier.
feel it's your vocation, just give it a
Yeah,
bash.
yeah. So don't let your age be a barrier because it most definitely will stand to you doing it, particularly doing a course, and also later when you start working, it will
Yeah.
it will really stand to you. Yeah.
And there's a lot of crossover because obviously we're talking about the skills gap, the upskill and everything, like especially within the IT sector.
Yeah.
So like I think, as AI and other, industries may be quite strongly affected by AI,
Yeah.
there might be other opportunities where you can upskill within AI or those different pieces. And we see that a lot. Like as you said, like some of my friends when they finish school, they tried something and then they're in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and they're saying the boat has sailed, but like
Yeah.
it
It's not.
definitely hasn't. Definitely
Definitely
hasn't.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Uh,
you're gonna find like even just in software, like around the last 5 years, again, coming into my managing people phase of my career or leadership or whatever you want to call it, like the amount of people cross skilling even within software is crazy. Like you might start out as a software engineer in year one, but by year five you could be a designer, you could be a product owner, a QA, you could be a project manager, you could be out on site, you could be doing sales. There's just
yeah.
so much room for growth, or like there's so many lateral moves you can make. It
Yeah.
doesn't just have to be moving through this progression, being a software engineer, then a senior software engineer,
Yeah.
um
Yeah, there's so many new doors that have opened with obviously scalable
data as well,
software
like you
and
say.
different
Yeah.
different products. Like where before, I'd say
Mhm.
probably when you came through, not to assume anything, it probably was very like waterfall. That it was probably structured
It
quite a
was
lot,
what, yeah.
and now it's gone to everything else that's went in it. What would
Yeah.
your advice be for grads now if people are picking courses or going out and
Yeah.
having a look for new like opportunities? As grads, like what would your advice be to somebody newly coming into
Um,
into the sector?
as a grad, as a new grad, it's really hard, and your placement is like everyone does a placement. If you do a 4 year degree, you do a placement.
Yeah,
Make the most of that. Like that's all well and good saying that now if you're already graduated, but like try and really find somewhere that will put you to use. Whether it could be just as simple as QA, manual QA, or you might be doing writing a bit of call or support, but try and make the most of that 8 months or a year, and get as much exposure. And then postgraduate, um, it's hard at the moment. Like it is hard,
yeah,
particularly remote. It's hard to join as a grad, but like really, I would say the startup space, like the startup space in Ireland now, there's so many small businesses that have
yeah,
so many gaps. They can't hire to fill, and not like they don't have the budget
yeah.
like small
Of course,
startups
yeah,
in the 5 to 50 employee range have a ton of problems that are semi-technical or technical, and that is a very real route into for grads that are struggling to find a way in, whether it's even part-time work, like I'll help out and do manual QA once every 2 weeks,
yeah,
because like you get exposure, but the company also gets to see, can you work within the constraints of being remote, or like not having the experience that you need. As far as like the usual thing people say is, build up your portfolio, your GitHub, but like
yeah.
that's great and all, but that takes a long time, and you have to kind of be doing that through college again. That's something you should be
So you
building.
saying if you have college projects, upload them, get them onto GitHub,
Get them
get
on,
get
yeah,
get them
yeah,
visible.
yeah, and like don't try and get over creative when you're if it's not a project and you're trying to build something to show you have a portfolio.
Yeah,
Don't try and invent something new. Just copy something else. Like just like vast
yeah,
majority of things that people build ever are just better executed versions of the previous thing. There people, most companies are just kind of slightly iterating on a previous
yeah.
version,
Don't reinvent the wheel, basically.
or just reinvent it slightly better. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
To where we were before, but obviously
Yeah.
day one of the wheel to where we are today.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
probably a
Slightly.
good
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
There. Cool. So then you obviously then for yourself when you came into the world of technology, obviously at a different time, but can you remember getting your first role and getting your first job and what that looked like?
Yeah, it was for Capital Life and Pensions on Adelaide Road. Yeah, it was probably one of my favourite jobs. I think I've worked in far too many. I moved around a lot through my career, and it was like a junior dev / support. So it was like you got to do a bit of support, you got to do a bit of dev. It's working with a lot of interest in, it wasn't just a software job, because I was working with actuaries and accountants, because they were an insurance company, basically a life insurance company. So it was no,
they're still going here in Ireland anyway, and in Dublin I think they still have a decent enough IT department as well. So
fantastic.
What did you like about that job? As you said, was it touching on the business side as well as the technical side? Is that what kind of you really liked about it, or was the people, like, what was it that, as you said, it was one of your favorite roles?
I think it was the I think leaving that job, I was like, I think I want to be an actuary, or an accountant or something. I found the finance side or whatever you call it, the actuarial side, was so interesting.
That's the first time from an IT person. I want to be an accountant.
Yeah, I know. It was just the team, the actuary team were very, they're a cool team. Like I know it just sounds so weird, but what they done was just very, very interesting. And like, I think that sort of, I just loved learning something new outside of my core competencies, like outside of the basic. Like we were writing VB6 and VB.NET then. So like anything I could learn outside of that, I just found really, really interesting. And I knew nothing about actuary before going into that job, and because it was my first job. I was 20. I was 20 going into that job. I was so young.
Graduating college and still only 20 for your first
weird.
Job. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. It was so weird. And like, again, talking about the maturity thing, like, it's great now because of like 18 years experience, and I'm 37, but or 17 years experience, 37. But like back then, I didn't have the maturity to even interact. Like I was able to professionally interact well, but I wasn't always great. There's like, maturity brings other benefits there as well. Like, so it's not just the understanding of the technicals. It's just being able to, interact with people.
And as well as probably timelines and deadlines as well. Like, instead of giving people what they want to hear, like actually giving them realistic and say, like, you want it done by Thursday, but realistically to have it done right, it's probably going to be Monday. So it's probably that little bit of pushback that you probably get then with experience as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And do you think then with that job, it led you into all the different opportunities and avenues that that journey that you went on, afterwards? Because obviously you said you've moved around and done different type of roles. So do you feel like getting the actuary side of things and getting exposure to something new, is that something that always kind of sparks your interest? Is something new, learning something new? Like, do you think that kind of opened up the door for you, or what's kind of your thoughts then on the journey that you went on?
Yeah, I kind of left there after a year and a bit and went back and started a PhD in machine learning, and stayed at that for a year and a half. Then realized I'm not able, this isn't for me. And then
so you're about 16 years ahead of your time, even then. Everyone's talking machine learning, AI, and the last year. Obviously, we've been talking about it since forever, but the mainstream media, I suppose, in the last 12 months. But you were doing ML back then.
Yeah, it was 2008, 2009 or 2008. Yeah, we were doing kind of reinforcement learning for wireless networks. So being wireless networks automatically being able to change frequency depending on the environment around it type thing. That was kind of the research. But again, very early days in that. And I after a year and a half, I found that sort of environment very hard to work in. Yeah. I like the team-based work. I liked, that's part of the things I learned in Capita was like, I really like working with cross-functional teams. So like, that was definitely my first exposure in Capita to the cross-functional team with the actuaries, the support guys, the PMs, project managers. It was waterfall, but it was like still quite iterative and quite cross-functional. So it was really good like that. That's where I got the exposure to the proper teamwork in IT. And I moved. So
do you feel with the ML you're quite then on your own and at that time?
More academic research is quite it can be quite lonely, I would say, because you're but like a lot of people, and like again, I'd probably go back. I'd probably really enjoy it now because I just singular focus working on one thing. Back then I was still learning, so I probably wouldn't, if I was to do that again. I wouldn't do a PhD so early. I think you need experience behind you to be able to
do the PhD then.
Yeah, well, me personally now, that's not the same for everyone, but I've plenty of friends. I'm meeting them again this weekend, and they're doctors now, and they're doctor. I won't say her name now, but
yeah, living the life, living the dream. Hopefully, while we're in the weeds trying to create software, but so then like with that, then like what would you say were the most enjoyable parts of the early days? So in your early 20s, like what were the most enjoyable things? You touched on it there, working with different teams and working with teams, like but what did you enjoy the most over that, say 20 to 25?
I guess it was like endless learning opportunities. Was really like there was like even from when I was very young, like I was just really hungry to learn about IT. I kind of just developed an interest. I just really enjoyed it. And in your early career, I was in small to medium sized businesses back then, and there's just so many learning opportunities. But another word for it is work. So you can kind of like do as much work as you want. Like you can grab at different things that are outside again your core, your wheelhouse. You can start doing a bit of QA. You can get involved in the design. You can get involved in the product, or what back then was like just backlog management. So I got exposure to different things outside development because I had so much time in my hands. I was young lad living in Dublin, so I had lots of time in my hands. So it was really, and that has definitely stood to me. Getting one of the downfalls I see with some engineers even now is kind of like they stay in their lane too long, and they don't, like, even as simple as I'm a front end React engineer, and I don't want to do anything else other than that. And that's great, but like there's major benefits to understanding there's layers to this, right? There's not just within engineering, not just within product. If you go a layer out again, you have the commercial stuff. If you go a layer again, you have the sales stuff. Like it's so interesting, and it makes you a better engineer. The more context you have for the end user, the economic buyer of your software or hardware, whatever, the better an engineer you can be, the better architect you can be. The more context you have.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like you said, and that kind of led on to a part of my next question is, in some environments, and obviously when I'm working for clients and trying to put people into jobs, they talk about, one for a better phrase, the pigeonhole or the assembly line. You're not understanding what's going on around you fully. And that leads back in, because everything you've spoken about since we started has been learning and development, understanding the business, understanding all the technical frameworks, and getting to learn from 20 to 25. So is that what you would say to people? Like, because a lot of people, you hear on the news, the salaries in tech is going up, and and you see it, yourself, you've interviewed candidates and you look on the CV and they spent a year or so here and they're jumping, and the main motivations is salary. So like, what would your advice then be to those people, as I said, between the 2025 range? Like, if you were to go back then, like, what would you do the same? Because there's only so much you can get to then in way of salary. It's usually those people that put their hand to everything that can really, really kick on.
You think you've hit the nail on the head there, to be honest. The mistake I made when I was early in the career, I went a little bit after the money. Wasn't great. Industry wasn't great when I left college. When I went back after the PhD, it was just after the 2008 crash, so it wasn't great then. But the mistake I made was leaving good people, like leaving good leaders too early. So and not staying with them, because like you learn the most from good leaders, or they put you in a position to succeed in the best way you can. And well, more money always doesn't, like, it sounds appealing and all, but like really you need to think the long term. Really, there is a ceiling on what you can earn as an engineer, but like what you can the experience that you can gain as an engineer, and there is no ceiling on what you can earn once you get out of the engineering roles. You can become extremely valuable to any size business if you have the right experience, or you have the breadth of experience, not just within, again, a single competency. Like if you have big breadth of experience from sales, even just a bit of exposure to sales, even in, and then like if you have a strong design background or understanding, I'm talking UX here, and you can be extremely valuable.
So it's the customer experience piece is what you were touching on, like, so really understanding the customer journey, the customer experience, and then the business case behind it. Because, I've seen from engineers, they can be the best coders or the best people at what they do, but they want to implement the technology that they're building because it's exciting for them to build, rather than does this make business sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make financial sense.
Technology. To do it. So
ultimately, software exists to be purchased, and like if we were to strip it all back, like you're building a product to be sold, and it had so again, like one of the, I think you touched on there a minute ago, one of the problems that exists is you can become so abstract from the underlying, so many layers between you and the end user or the buyer of that piece of software. Whether if it's B2B, there's a business buying it. If it's B2C, there's an individual buying your app or your whatever. The further you are away from that user, the less context you have for. And it's not like you just need to be close to them. You need to know how to consume that information, and how to get to that information. So like that's really the skill that I'm on about, where you try and broaden your horizons a little bit, and you can start as early as you want in your career, as early as you can. Yeah.
So that brings you through to then your architect, because obviously you came through and you became an architect. So is that kind of where your mindset is going to? Like you would go in, speak to the customer, understand the solution, and then obviously build out the architecture around the solution from the customer. Is that what led you, let's say, on your journey, obviously coming through the different companies and then working for, as again, startups that became large enterprise companies? Is that kind of what you were touching on? Is that where you see the kind of value when you get to the end stage of the software lifecycle?
Yeah, I think like when you go past, you've like this Scrum team where you've these engineers and maybe a product owner, and like above them there's like two major conduits, as I see them, between the end user and everyone really. So they connect the leadership team of your business, they connect you to the customer, and they connect to the engineer and to the Scrum team. And it's usually a product manager or owner, and it's an architect. So there's someone that's the voice of the user, and then there's someone who's able to articulate the reason why we're building this a certain way. That's the architect, or why we have to spend this much money to the leadership team to build this thing like this. And then you have to obviously design the correct. You have to design it in such a way that you're building. You have two people. One is you're building the right thing. That's the architect, and then. That's a product owner. They're building the right thing, and then you build the thing right, which is the architect or tech leads, depending on the type of team. But yeah, so that's again, that was just me just grabbing at more work, just trying to learn something new. That's how I get into architecture. Like, can I do that? Can I draw that picture? That diagram. That's kind of like, so there was no real grand plan for me. I was just looking for.
What's next? What's the opportunity? Learn something new.
Learn something new.
And it comes back to curiosity. From speaking to you, you seem quite curious. So is that what you'd say as well to an engineer, a leader? Just continue to be curious about what's going on.
Yeah, try and no ego. Learn without an ego. Don't it's fine to say I don't know how this works, and can you you can learn something from everyone, and you should learn as much as you can, particularly in the early days when you have a lot of time in your hands. And
Cool. So just leading in, obviously, just the last couple of questions. So with yourself then, you spoke about just now, like, so did you have any mentors? That do you surround yourself with kind of mentors or go-to people if you hit a snag or you need a bit of help, or where you're a lone ranger and pull information from books and online? Like what way would you say you were structured on your leadership journey?
I think I was saying to you earlier around kind of leaving good leaders early. I've probably done that too much in my career, and but like you had two very good ones of mine. I reported into Kieran Grant and Nick Power on your show. Two of them were probably the two best. Again, I've had. I still talk to Kieran quite regularly.
He's great. I really enjoy talking to Kieran.
I I'd still pick his brain the odd time, and he sometimes pick my brain on the technicals, and like that's going on up until a few weeks ago. And then like, and I haven't spoken to Nick in a few years, but again, he was a very, very good leader, and that's like, look, here's career progression. How it's, how he's grown since when I was on his architecture team in Fleetmatics, and he's now CTO of Cubic, right? And I'd say he's done a brilliant job there, to be honest, because he was great to work for. And then like outside of people I reported directly into, like Eric Evans was probably the biggest individual. You probably don't know Eric Evans, but he's kind of like the inventor of domain-driven design, and he's probably having the single biggest impact on me on like trying to understand how to build good software, how to architect good software. And I was introduced to him quite early in my career, kind of like this book, the Big Blue Book. And he the way he reasons about a problem space to try and architect a solution is very interesting. And it just turns out I've been harping on about domain-driven design. I used to do it to Nick, I used to do it to Kieran. It's now becoming part and parcel of pretty much every company I know now. Well, not every company, but like anyone that's
worth their salt.
Yeah, maybe that's harsh. But like,
bit biased, maybe a bit biased.
Yeah, maybe slightly biased because I think it's great. But so it'd be Kieran and Nick were probably my people.
Yeah, then, two great people, and two people that I've worked with as well, myself as clients, and for me they just get it, and they've always built crazy good teams around them, like, and it just shows you that those leaders. So I think good people are attracted by good leaders, and it's good to hear those names definitely popping about. And again, you pulled the book there that you spoke about, so I'm sure probably that's your favorite book if you were to mention a favorite book. But do you listen to any podcasts or any of that, like any motivational stuff?
Can't stand it. I can't stand podcasts personally, but again, that's just like if I'm not working, I don't want to hear someone talking about work. Like, so
do you want to switch off? And what do you like hobbies wise? Do you like football, sports, anything like that, or is it more so the game?
A bit of running and swimming and usual, nothing too strenuous or difficult. Yeah, just a bit of running.
An Northside lad like myself, so are you following the rugby at all?
Yeah, I watch the rugby now. Yeah. Not too many rugby teams and fingers are cool up now, but
well, that's it. We have to pretend we're from Clontarf then, so we know that the only Northside rugby team that we have.
Clontarf jersey next week, will you?
That's it. But we'll see. It'd be great to see how the rugby goes. But so obviously you touched on the book, and can you just say the name of the book there just again, so we can get if people want to read into it.
It's an old book. It's 20 years old. It's just called Domain-Driven Design.
Domain-Driven Design.
And the reason why I like books like that is because they're slightly abstract, and they're slightly more around reasoning about like how should you think about building software, not like this is the pattern you should use, and this is the use Kubernetes and use this queue and use this mechanism. It's more like this is how you should think about strategically when you're architecting software, from the single component right up to massive enterprise systems.
Cool. Brilliant. And then listen, though, I'd like to get a couple of minutes of this because, like, obviously you're still quite young. You're only 37 and you've done so much. What gave you the bug to become a founder, CTO, and go out and do your own thing? So how did that all come about, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't have a very good, I don't have a very interesting answer here, but like, I guess it was just a challenge, and again a learning opportunity. My wife is sick of hearing that word, but learning opportunity to, I've never, like, it's a whole different ballgame to, and like it I'd recommend it to anyone, because you get to learn so much, and it kind of makes you a better version of yourself, because you learn. You don't have someone you don't have someone like a leader that you can bounce questions off or lean on, or you're not working within the bounds of a roles and responsibilities in your contract. You have to do everything, and you have to decide which things are most important. So because there are only so many hours in the day,
of course,
it's extremely challenging, but it's good fun.
Yeah,
no, and I've no good reason.
Well, yeah, no, was that like, so when you were in companies, and obviously you are like, from the outside looking in, I wasn't obviously working with you day to day, but you were one of the main guys in terms of, part of that team, building out the architecture, the designs, everything like that. Did you always feel that this would be the case, that you will go out and set up your own thing or your own, company? Did you feel at a point that was always going to happen? And was there things, that you couldn't potentially shape because you were working in, such large enterprise type companies as well, where, there's only so much you can do without being told, you can't bring that to where you want to bring it to.
Yeah.
So was like, what kind of fed into that? Or as you said, was it just something clicked in your head that day and you're like, right, I spot the opportunity and I'm going for it?
It was like, I was working for Kieran McGrath at the time, and and he was very supportive. I was leaving his job to start this, and he was very supportive. But like, and the company I was working in, like, they were very entrepreneurial focused business. So like, again, the roles and responsibilities were quite loose in that, like, you could do what you wanted to do, and you could really kind of almost be an entrepreneur within a larger company. So I don't know. I don't know what it was exactly, but I don't have a good answer to that one. But like,
did you read up on the industry? Because obviously it might be in our industry and stuff like that. So like, did you read up and find, that there's definitely, we can create a solution for what's going on here? Like, how did that piece come about? Like, how did your research or how did your mind kind of work to go, right, here we go? Because obviously, you're an architect, tomorrow, touch wood, you probably walk into any company and get, paid quite well for what you do. So yeah, what did what did you do, or what was the process behind that then? Because obviously there's a lot of companies like yourself in Ireland, and cool.
Yeah, I can explain that. I skipped over that. Like, so like, I was working for another company in health tech, and I was working with my now co-founder Sean, and like, I had left and he was still working there, and then there was redundancies there, so he was kind of like thinking, like, I think we can do this. I think we can do what we were doing in the previous company, and I think we can do it better. And because we had built numerous iterations of this product in the previous, and we said, like, like, we can change this, and we basically completely kind of like almost shifted the idea slightly. And we're like, I think this can work. Like, we need to validate, can we sell this? So we chanced our arm, and I worked quite a bit in the evenings and weekends for about 6 to 7 months building out our MVP and trying to, like,
proof of concept.
Yeah, probably past proof. Like, it was a working prototype, more than a working prototype. It was probably like to the point of an MVP, and then we sold it to a company in Australia, or they bought a license for it, and then at that point it was like, okay, we can sell this. We built it. If I can build it on my own, we can raise money. If we can build it on my own and sell it to someone, we can definitely, raise money and sell it to loads of people. So that was kind of the theory behind it. So that's what we did. When we got that contract, we went and raised money, off the back of that contract, saying, "Oh, look, here's a paying customer," and then it's a senior living platform. So we sell to senior living operators in the US now, but yeah, and that's kind of the process. It's like you need everything's a hypothesis. Everything's an experiment. Everything has a hypothesis. And everything's an experiment. Like, if we do this, can we validate that by doing this, that it's worth continuing to do this? That's kind of the theory behind everything that we do, and like that's kind of the theory behind lean or lean startup, if you've ever heard of that book as well. Like, it's like, like, you kind of you make sure that everything you're doing is data driven, and like every decision you're making, because you've no one to tell you what to do. And this is ultimately how every company works at you know, they're
at all levels.
Yeah, at all levels. Yeah. And but like that's how we started out, again, following the lean startup methodologies of kind of like iterating really, really fast, kind of short, simple experiments, validate, okay, is this correct? You know, validate with the end user, is it not? And then we scrap and move on. But that's kind of been what we've been at now for nearly 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Or two. Yeah.
I was gonna say something there, but you're probably gonna laugh at me. Do you like the freedom of what you're doing?
There's no freedom. It's the opposite.
I knew that was gonna be the answer.
Yeah.
I knew it before I asked.
Yeah, like you've a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder, and you're like, we've a team there's probably 17 of us now around the world. So like everyone has a job there, and so like it's great. Like it's the single most enjoyable thing you can do, and like obviously the reward, like what everyone's doing when they're trying to form a startup, is they're trying to make loads of money, and that's ultimately what it's about. Like you can be a wage slave for the rest of your life, or you can try and make it big. But in a startup, it's extremely challenging, and like most of them fail. So I'll probably be looking for a job, you know, in maybe in a few years. But like
definitely not. I'm hoping, I'm wishing you well on your journey, Neil, and I know you'll give it a good crack no matter what way you go at it. So you're still exactly the bit of time behind you, and you're still trucking on. So I definitely you'll definitely, you know, you win or you learn. That's what I always say. So
you win or you learn. Exactly. Exactly. You win or you learn, and and that's like, even just now, like talking about earlier around them layers. Like I'm now reading about sales. I knew I used to be involved in sales a little bit, but now it's about learning around, you know, how
we used to pass the ball. I've built it, you go sell it.
Yeah, exactly. But now like it's interesting learning about sales and marketing and different things outside of your comfort zone and outside of your
and the things they're actually looking for as well when they're selling, like, because you might, a lot of people might understand, like, they're gonna love the way this is built technically or whatever, where people are just like, I want to save money, I want to save time. That's ultimately, I don't care how it's built.
Everyone has different motivations.
Exactly.
Everyone and that, like, that's another great book as well. Again, it was recommended by a founder of a massive company I tried to get in contact with, not a competitor of ours, but they're kind of like an adjacent industry in senior living. And I was like, can I have 30 minutes here? I just want to pick your brain. Again, it's just me, you know, looking for people to, you know, who succeeded in this. And he said, go away, read Crossing the Chasm, and come back to me. So I went away, and I was flying to Australia next week, so I read it on the way over. And Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore is a fantastic book for anyone, probably more in the product space, but product or even the product engineering or lead engineers. Crossing the Chasm is a very interesting book. It really kind of like helps you understand the psychology of like the different types of people that buy your software, and it's very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, no, that's brilliant. Like like everything you spoke about there, Neil. I know, like, when we speak, it's really, we just, you know, touch base and say hello and how everything's going, and are you looking for a job sometimes. But no, it's great, because I always wanted to peel back the layers and know a little bit, obviously, more about you and your career, like, and like, you've done so much. And in fairness, you know, I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder. I do hopefully understand a lot of it at this stage from speaking to everyone. But a lot of your story is quite similar to myself. You know, I finished up in you know, school when I was 17, and, you know, similar background, similar journey, you know, and you know, I'm 33 now as well, and you know, leader in my business. So no, it's great, and I think a lot of the stuff that you've spoke about today will definitely be taken away. You know, I'm starting to read. I'm probably the other side of you now. I'm more the podcast, the manifests, all of that stuff. But well, I suppose that goes with sales, I suppose, probably as well sometimes. But no, it's great. Definitely, I think the big thing for me is, and my background, you know, and the people around me, probably wouldn't have been crazy encouraged about reading books. You know, it was more at the sports route, focus on that. You know, which I did do. But I think definitely now, looking back, just the one thing for me would be reading books. You know, getting as many insights from people that have done it before, as you just said. You know, you ask and reach out and ask these people. They might say, what's the worst you can say is no. So
I could show you me hounding that guy for every 3 months. You know, just respond to me, just like, you know. And that's the other big part of all of this, is just rejection, and like, just, you're going to be constantly rejected, and either by customers or, you know, just like people like that are just kind of like just not respond, or trying to hire certain people. It's just, but you have to be, again, like you said, win or learn. You just have to be able to learn from.
Yeah, it's a numbers game as well. Like, and you hate that when people in sales, they say it's a numbers game, but realistically, like if you look at the top sports people, they talk about Michael Jordan, how many shots that he's missed, and what is seen as successful. And we know as well, even with product releases and there's stuff that'll have bugs and have stuff in it. But once if you get that right once, that's all it needs to take, is to get it right once, and then to get X amount of customer base. You don't need to have all the customers, but if you have a good customer base, then that's what success looks like. So, now listen, Neil, it was excellent talking to you. Thanks a million for your time. Like, I know it's limited. I know you're flat out at the moment, but you're definitely a person that I think people can really relate to your story, and hopefully they'll take a couple of your hints and tips, because you've got a lot around the books, the research, and what you actually do. And in my eyes, I see as being a success, especially being an architect at such a young age, and scaling all these companies out that you have. So no, listen, I wish you the very best of luck.
Cheers,
and
likewise.
Stay in touch and talk soon.
I will do. Right. See you guys. Thanks.
Cheers,
bye.
Neil. Thanks, bye.